Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Wiener. I have the honor of representing San Francisco and Good morning, everyone. Scott Wiener. I have the honor of representing San Francisco and Northern Seminole County in the California State Senate. And today I'm honored to be joined by colleagues and community leaders to announce new legislation which will be put formally into print in the very near future. Legislation to ensure that California is a place of refuge for transgender children and their parents as a wave of criminalization between Texas and other states. This legislation, which will be co-sponsored by Equality California and Planned Parenthood, and which is co-authored by our entire LGBTQ legislative caucus, as well as several straight allies, is a direct response to truly vicious, hateful, disgraceful, dangerous laws and executive action in other states that target transgender children and their parents with separation, placement into foster care, and criminalization for accessing gender-affirming health care. These laws and executive actions literally threaten jail time for parents for providing an affirming and loving home for their children. These laws and actions, they're variable, but quite similar in their goal of terrorizing parents of trans children and intimidating those parents into not supporting their children's access to necessary health care. For example, Texas Governor Greg Abbott recently announced that parents who allow their trans kids to access gender-affirming care would be criminally prosecuted and their kids removed and placed in foster care. The Idaho House of Representatives passed legislation making it a felony for physicians or parents to provide or authorize gender-affirming care for children with a maximum penalty of literally life in prison. The legislation also would make it a felony to leave the state to seek gender-affirming care for a minor in other states, for example, California. Fortunately, the Idaho Senate killed that bill, but it'll no doubt be back in another form. The Louisiana legislature is considering legislation to criminalize physicians who provide gender-affirming care to minors or who even make referrals to other physicians. A similar bill is moving through the Alabama legislature. Arizona is considering legislation that criminalizes gender-affirming care in general for minors. We know that other red states will also no doubt be considering these bills as well, because if we look over the last 30 years, as long as one red state proposes an anti-LGBTQ piece of legislation, whether it's banning marriage equality, whether it's attacking trans kids, whether it's banning gay adoption, they all copy each other, and it spreads like wildfire throughout the country. To be clear, I want to be crystal clear, these bills and executive actions will lead to the death of trans children. Imagine signaling to a child that because of who you are, you're going to be taken away from your parents and put in foster care, and your parents are going to be thrown in jail. Imagine the signal that sends to these children. Is it any wonder that LGBTQ youth commit suicide at far higher rates than their non-LGBTQ peers? We believe that these actions and these bills are unconstitutional. Indeed, Governor Abbott's action has already been put on hold by Texas state courts. However, we cannot rely on courts to protect these families, particularly after what we've seen in the U.S. Supreme Court lawlessly allowing Texas's anti-abortion law to proceed. California must step up and provide refuge to these transgender children and their families by making clear they can come here and we will do everything in our power to protect them. To that end, our legislation will do three things. First, it will reject any out-of-state court judgment removing a trans child in their parent's custody based on the parent allowing the child to receive gender-affirming care. The bill states that such judgments are against the public policy of the state of California, and it prohibits courts from honoring, California courts from honoring those out of court able to come here and have confidence that a Texas or Idaho or Louisiana court judgment separating the child from the parents will not be honored here. Number two, the legislation will bar compliance in California with any out-of-state subpoena seeking help or related information about people who come to California to receive gender-affirming care if that subpoena relates to criminalization based on receiving that care. And third, the legislation declares that it's the policy of the state of California that any arrest warrant relating to the provision of gender-affirming care to a child will be the lowest law enforcement priority in California in terms of honoring that arrest warrant. With this bill, California will continue to be a leader in protecting the civil rights and the basic dignity of LGBTQ people, and will help trans kids and their parents know that they have a safe place to go if they're threatened with prosecution. The history of the LGBTQ community is a history of criminalization and violence. Society trying to erase us and then punishing us if we refuse to be erased, whether by death, incarceration, beatings, lobotomies, electric shock therapy, conversion therapy, or other forms of violence. California will not be a party to this new wave of deadly LGBTQ criminalization. I want to thank our co-authors, including the chair and vice chair of our LGBTQ Legislative Caucus, Assemblymember Evan Lowe and Senator Susan Eggman, as well as LGBTQ caucus members, Senator Tony Atkins, our Senator Pro Tem, Senator John Laird, and Assembly members Sabrina Cervantes, Alex Lee, and Chris Ward. I also want to thank two of our straight ally co-authors, Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan and Mia Bonta. I want to especially thank Assembly members Bauer-Cahan and Bonta and Planned Parenthood for their legislative work in the abortion context. They have bills pending right now to make sure that California does not pursue Texas and other states in criminalizing and imposing civil penalties and liability on people who receive abortion care and providers. We have used their legislative work as a foundation for our work, and I really want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for their allyship. So now I want to bring up Assembly Member Alex Lee from our LGBTQ Legislative Caucus.
Thank you, Senator Wiener. I want to thank you for your leadership and quick action on this issue. We have seen with for the LGBTQ community what is happening across the country right now, the weaponization and the terror that conservative politicians and bigots are using our community as a wedge issue to get themselves more popular amongst the electorate. So I want to thank you, Senator Wiener, for your leadership, as well as the entire caucus, other colleagues on here. You know, the rights and lives of trans youth are under attack throughout this country right now. In Texas, providing gender-affirming care would now be considered child abuse. Earlier this month in Alabama, the state Senate passed a bill that would criminalize gender-affirming care. That same bill also required schools to inform parents of new information regarding their child's gender identity expressed in school. Trans youth already face numerous barriers to health care, and with these targeted attacks, they struggle even more with increased fear and mental health concerns. Denying gender-affirming care denies care that can be life-saving. Studies always show that access to gender-affirming care reduces risk of depression, psychological distress, and suicidal ideation. Importantly, these medical decisions belong to trans youth, their families, and their doctors, and they should be able to make these decisions on their own terms. With this bill in California, we are making it clear that this state will not abide by out-of-state subpoenas. We will not be complicit in the assault on trans youth, their families, and we will continue to welcome transgender, nonconforming, and intersex people in the state. And as an openly and proudly bisexual member of our LGBT community, I stand as an ally with our trans youth and our trans families continually, and that to all the trans youth across the country right now that are living in fear, we see you, we hear you, and we will fight for you so that you can live freely and authentically as yourselves. So thank you so much for your leadership, everyone.
Thank you, Assembly Member. I now want to ask from the City of Orinda, for Rebecca Bauer.
I want to start by thanking Senator Scott Wiener for his leadership on this issue. He has always been an incredible ally to the trans community working for gender-affirming care, and your leadership in that space is so important. As Scott said, I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan from the 16th Assembly District, and I'm proud to be a Californian. I'm a mom, and I'm a lifelong Californian. And I'm proud to be a Californian because I'm raising children here. Children who I know have people like the people surrounding me to fight for them to have comprehensive access to health care. Every day in this Capitol, we fight for comprehensive access to health care for every single Californian. And that means every single one of our LGBTQ community members. And so when we see other states attacking those individuals, we know that we as Californians must stand up and say that here in California, it's not going to happen. Our courts won't enforce those laws, both because they're unconstitutional, but because it is against the public policy and the values of our great state. And so we stand here today, as Assemblymember Lee said, to make sure that every single trans youth across this country knows that you have us here in California. You're welcome here. We'll protect you, we'll work for you, and we'll make sure that you have access to health care in every way that you need it. That decision, as it should be for every Californian and every single American, is between you, your healthcare provider, and your family, and nobody else. So thank you again to the LGBTQ caucus for your leadership, and I'm proud to stand beside you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. I now see that the chair of our LGBTQ Legislative Caucus, Assemblymember Evan Lowe, has arrived. So Assemblymember, thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Wiener. And Assemblymember Bauer-Cahan, this is a very fabulous dress that you were wearing today. Look at this. In solidarity, prepared for this conference. Thank you. All joking aside, I am saddened, actually, by the legislative intent and the reason, the impetus for this legislation. In fact, we demonstrate the values of California to be as inclusive as possible, recognizing the importance of our trans family members. And to the parents of trans children, we love you. Again, we love you. Do not be dismayed by what you see in other states. We in California welcome you with open arms. We will continue to demonstrate and reflect those values. And it's not just about the LGBTQ plus community. You're seeing incredible champions and allies, and recognizing that it's not just an issue towards our community, but all of our values as human beings. And that's why we're so proud and thankful for our straight allies, Assemblywoman Bauer-Cahan and Assemblymember Mia Bonta, and so many others. But what you also see surrounding us here today is that this is not just a statistic. These are people. These are human beings. And think about what this is about gender-affirming care, to be one's true self. Why would we punish, criminalize basic fundamentals of our humanity? And so we stand firm and strong in saying we will fight as the state of California, the fifth largest commune in the world, and that this is not over. And we want to be the beacon of hope. So to all that are watching in other states, the water is warm. Please come to California. We will love you and welcome you with open arms. And having said that, I'd now like to turn it over to an incredible champion to our LGBTQ plus community, Assemblywoman Mia Bonta.
Thank you, Chair Lowe, and again, I want to express my deep gratitude to Senator Scott Wiener, who continues to help us all recognize our responsibility. I'm Assemblymember Mia Bonta, and I represent the 18th Assembly District, which includes the people of Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro. And I am so proud to be able to stand with Senator Wiener in introducing SB 107, in addition to the co-authors of the LGBTQ caucus and my colleague, Assemblymember Bauer-Kagan. Because recent efforts right now in other states targeting the mental and physical health of our transgender children and parents needs to stop, be recognized, and we need to know that California will continue to be the last stand for all. California has always been at the forefront of equality, of advocating for the rights of the entire LGBTQI community, and more importantly, setting the example for other states on how we treat everyone. As a mother, I find it incredibly shocking that in states like Idaho, Texas, and Florida, we have children who are not secure in their personhood. We have families who have the ability to be able to recognize and support their children in gender-affirming care, and that we have any question that health care should be accessible to every individual. I thank you for being able to bring together these amazing advocates that stand behind us in their beauty, in their wonder, and in their demonstration that they actually have been able to benefit from the health care and gender-affirming care that we've been able to provide here in California, and that they will stand, as we all do, for every child across the United States. And as Assemblymember Lowe said, yes, please come to California. Please be cared for, and please be recognized in all that you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. I do want to, the water unfortunately in the Pacific is not warm. But we are warm in California. We will share that warmth. So as I mentioned, this bill is co-sponsored by two amazing organizations, Quality California and Parenthood. And so I want to invite up Tommy Martin from Quality California and Jody Hicks, the leader of Parenthood here in California.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tommy Martin, Legislative Director for Equality California. And if you take a look at our mission statement, you'll see that it notes that for over 20 years, Equality California has led the Golden State's fight for LGBTQ+ civil rights and social justice. And that phrasing is very intentional. Through strong statewide legislation, litigation with national implications, and building up our LGBTQ+ and ally leaders, we have not only led the fight within the Golden State, we also recognize that the Golden State always has some role to play in the fight for full lived equality for LGBTQ+ people everywhere. Which is why today is so monumental. We are here today not only to amplify the values of inclusion, respect, courage, and authenticity, but also to say that we will not allow other states to hunt our community within California's borders. This new legislation is not just an LGBTQ+ priority. As reflected in the diversity of our coalition here today, this legislation is a resounding rejection of the blatant assaults on all marginalized communities everywhere. To transgender youth anywhere in the country, and to your families who stand with you in affirmation, let this legislation reinforce your armor and your renewal. You are welcome here. And we are privileged to be working with the incredible champions, organizations, and advocates here today to lay out the welcome map. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Jody Hicks, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California. And thank you for having me. Thank you, Senator Wiener. Thank you, everyone here, for this important fight. And we know the transgender communities have historically been discriminated against, and erased. And sadly, we're all too familiar with the extreme attacks and terrible actions by state legislatures against the trans communities, policing people's bodies and denying access to essential health care. And I just want to say that Planned Parenthood health centers across California are proud to be providing gender-affirming care as well as sexual and reproductive health care more broadly, particularly helping serve LGBTQ plus communities who have historically been underserved. Our doors at Planned Parenthood are always open, regardless of who you are, where you come from, your socio-economic status, and know this, they will continue to be open. And I just want to take a minute, as others have, and say, as a parent of a child who is discovering who they are and who I have the joy of watching as they take agency over how they want to identify. And these laws are particularly cruel, and my heart goes out to all of the parents and kids. And thank you so much for all the brave folks behind me standing up. And I just want to be clear, laws like this do not change who they are, but they can change who they will become. So thank you so much for this fight. In Planned Parenthood, we stand with you just as we always have and always will. And your fight is our fight. And I'm so proud to be a part of California and a part of this fight. Thank you.
Great. As you can see behind us, we have some folks from our amazing Sacramento LGBTQ community, and I want to thank all of you for your continual fight for our community. And I want to invite up Lauren Pulido, the co-executive director of the Gender Health Center.
Good morning. It is an honor to be up here with other prominent LGBTQ leaders and allies who are willing to stand up for our most vulnerable youth. My name is Lauren Pulido, my pronouns are he, they, and I'm our co-executive director of the Gender Health Center and co-director of our advocacy department. The Gender Health Center is a trans and POC-led grassroots nonprofit in Sacramento who provides mental health, counseling, harm reduction, advocacy, and respite services to the region's transgender, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary community. We see every day the impacts of gender-affirming care on clients, many of whom are youth. Gender-affirming care is not only medically necessary but life-saving. As a trans man, I know all too well the feeling of being trapped inside your own body, begging to be free, to be the person that I know I have been all along. Today is actually 1 year anniversary of me having my top surgery, and everyone has talked and everyone has talked about their view as a parent, but I can't imagine myself as a youth having access to that. And me as an adult, I know firsthand how life-changing this experience can be. There is no one braver and more divine than a trans person who wants so desperately to be free that they live their truth in spite of the naysayers and the protesters who wish harm to us. Our trans siblings in Texas deserve that freedom. And we as leaders in California and in the LGBTQ community have an obligation to utilize our privilege and platforms to help them. Last week, my incredible staff actually wrote letters to trans youth. I'd like to read a quick excerpt from one of those letters to you all. Hello, from Sacramento, California. I want you to know that people like me everywhere are rooting for you. You are amazing, and you are so loved. You may feel isolated, but I want you to know that you are not alone. We promise that we will keep fighting for you and your right to be yourself. You are worthy of being fought for. Thank you, Senator Wiener, and the LGBTQ caucus and those that are willing to never shy away from this righteous fight. Together, we can ensure every youth, no matter where they live, have access to the life-saving and gender-affirming care they deserve and the support they deserve. Thank you.
Okay, so those are our speakers today. I want to... Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there. Alexis.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Alexis Sanchez and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Training for the Sacramento LGBT Community Center. My pronouns are she, her, and her. The Sacramento LGBT Community Center works to create a region where LGBTQ people thrive. We support the health and wellness of the most marginalized and advocate for the equality and justice and work to build a culturally rich LGBTQ community. In 2001, we served tens of thousands of people, with a large portion of those being LGBTQ youth and transitional age. Every day we see the impact that anti-LGBTQ legislation has on youth locally. The messaging that's coming from other state legislatures has an impact that is felt far beyond. When youth see news stories where state houses are taking away access to care, and their existence is debated, it has a negative impact on their mental health. A Trevor Project survey stated that 94% of LGBTQ youth reported that recent politics negatively impacted their mental health. 52% of transgender youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. We need to oppose the recent assaults on transgender care in different states by reactionary politicians. The evidence shows that the treatment of trans and gender-varying youth with hormones and puberty blockers decrease suicidality, self-harm, depression, anxiety, substance use, and gender dysphoria. Families will be separated and children will die because of these policies. The announcement of this bill will hopefully provide some hope to families in Texas and the affirmation of youth locally as well. The potential of a bill like this one is to keep families together and to save many trans lives. Thank you.
Okay, those are our speakers today. I'm happy to take any questions from the press. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much, everyone. And again, that bill will be in print in the very near future. And appreciate everyone who turned out today. Thank you, everyone.